Alright everyone, welcome back. Now in today's episode, it's probably no surprise, but we will be talking about FTX, which is a crypto exchange that has had a very difficult week indeed.
I don't wanna lose you.
So let's first summarize the events that have taken place. And so the then CEO of FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried, or SBF, it was reported that he used $10 billion of customer funds to prop up the trading firm of Alameda Research. Now, interestingly, the terms and service of FTX states that they do not lend out anyone's assets, but a loan was made of $10 billion. And so with FTX lending over half of customer funds to Alameda, this was leaked by CoinDesk, which questioned their balance sheet, given that most was made up of the FTT token. And that's the token that FTX has for their exchange. Now, matters became much worse when the Binance founder of Changpeng Zhao announced plans to sell the billions of FTT that they held. In turn, that sent the token into a downward spiral, prices initially in the $25 mark, and at the time of recording now, $2.28. And so once you have a large player that sells off their tokens, this can have a catastrophic effect, which leads to other customers withdrawing funds. And then it becomes a point where customers are unable to. And in the case of FTX, this is because the amount of liquidity or available cash that the FTX platform is able to give back to consumers was simply not possible. With over half of customer assets sent to Alameda, this led to withdrawals being unable to be processed. Now, CZ and SBF are not best of friends. There's a history of the two communicating on Twitter, and they are both rivals in the space, given that at the time we had Binance as the number one crypto exchange and then FTX in second place. Now, CZ initially mentioned how he was unhappy with the Alameda scenario and decided to pull out of the FTT token. After the actual FTT token was rapidly selling off, CZ actually offered to buy out the platform, and we can see that within the tweet here. But this led to Binance walking away from acquiring FTX. And we can see the reason was due to corporate due diligence, as well as the latest news regarding mishandled customer funds and alleged US agency investigations. And so since then we have FTX, which has filed for bankruptcy, Chapter 11. It's all too familiar these days, given the likes of Celsius and many other smaller platforms out there. This is going to be a very complex process because not only do you have FTX as a single entity, but there's many other offshoot projects as well. You've got other subsidiaries such as FTX US, and there's more than 100 different companies that are affiliated to FTX. And there's also hedge funds which are struggling, given that they have had capital within the FTX exchange. And so with the likes of Gallius Capital, for those that don't know, the founder actually spotted the collapse of the cryptocurrency Luna early this year, but almost half of the company assets are trapped in the crypto exchange FTX. And so apparently some money has been pulled from the exchange, but roughly half is still stuck. And that equates to $100 million US. This could take a few years to recover, and even then it's just going to be a certain percentage of the assets. And so where does this leave us within the industry? And potentially you're probably thinking, what exchanges out there, if any, are going to last for the long term, and which exchanges are more safer when depositing our money into crypto? Now, there really isn't an easy answer here, but what we can identify is that when crypto exchanges leverage their assets and are unable to pay back when a large number of consumers attempt to withdraw their funds, that can only lead to a company filing for bankruptcy and becoming insolvent. We've seen countless examples this year alone, and even the likes of BlockFi, which is heavily connected with FTX, they have paused any form of withdrawals. And so BlockFi, although not announced at the moment, but it's highly likely that this company will be filing for bankruptcy as well. But what we've seen, and the likes of Binance have been some of the forefront players out there, is that we're now being able to verify where the company funds are being held. And so in the case of Binance, we have it listed here with how many coins they have in the likes of Bitcoin, Ethereum, USDT, etc. But what we want to see is actual validation. So we can see the different addresses that each one is pointing to. So for BTC, we can see this is a valid address. clicking on the link, we can see the actual balance in BTC and the actual balance value. So when we're looking at whether or not companies actually have their assets held into a wallet and making sure they're not lending funds out to other companies, the blockchain is one way that we can verify. Now, of course, it's very difficult to look at all the different wallet addresses. So hopefully in the future, on the likes of the websites, they'll have a more easier way to understand where the funds are being stored. But right now, and I have to stress that one of the most safest options out there is to store your funds into a cold wallet. But if you want to keep your money within an exchange, then Binance is a company that is performing well, and they are proven that they're not in the same scenario as FTX was with leveraging. And then Bitstamp, I use this platform quite often. As it stands at the moment, we just have a write out listing that they have separate accounts completely detached from their corporate assets, and it's a mapping of 1-to-1, which is what you want to see. On top of that, they have 98% of all their crypto assets stored in a cold offline storage. It would be nice to actually see some type of evidence that can validate what they are stating, because as we saw with FTX, it's very easy for people to list that everything is fine when in reality it's not. So hopefully Bitstamp does provide an address for some of their assets or some other form that we can validate. And then with crypto.com, the CEO Chris, we can see that they've also listed out their different addresses. So with the likes of BTC, we can validate the address and we can see that the net worth is 1.9 billion US dollars. And so for me, crypto.com is on par with that of Binance. Bitstamp, I'm hopeful with what they've stated, given that this was published after all the events with FTX took place. But it doesn't mean that these companies are not immune to other types of events in the future. So it's always been a risk when trading with crypto in terms of price volatility. It's now even more of a concern with the different exchanges that are leveraging behind the scenes. Hopefully this phase is going to be behind us. These big players such as Binance, crypto.com, they have to keep this level of trust with customers. It's in their interest, and that can only improve the current exchanges and any future ones that exist in the future. And so it's definitely unfortunate for anyone who has been using the FTX platform. But unfortunately, sometimes we need these types of processes to improve the exchanges and to improve the crypto space in general. Now, if you like this video, please give a thumbs up, share with friends out there. I post new content every single week, so definitely stay tuned for that. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. And with that said, I'll catch you in the next one.
'Cause I can't love you if you don't love me back. Even though I try, I can't do